All right, can you tell me your name?
Sure, my name is Indran Fernando.
Indran Fernando.
That's right.
So, Indran, can you tell me a little bit about what you know about the gentleman that was shot by the police?
Yeah, Bade Ali Jabir, he was 61 years old, a single father of 4 from Southeast Sudan. He came to the U.S. as a refugee fleeing war and starvation circumstances in a refugee camp, and I was his caseworker shortly after he came to the U.S. So I knew him and his 4 kids very well, and he was shot and killed, as you know, last Wednesday by the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department.
Can you tell me what you know about how that whole thing transpired?
Well, since the St. Louis Metropolitan Police has not released the body cam footage, and the details they provided have been very vague. It's limited to bystander accounts, really, but I've talked to a handful of people who said that they came there for an eviction. There were community members who tried to de-escalate the situation and convince Bade to come out peacefully, which he was willing to do if someone would just accompany him out of the building, someone he knew and he could understand. But my understanding is that the SWAT team that had showed up would not allow for that. They chose to escalate and they raided his apartment. Now they're saying he lunged with a knife and they shot him many times.
Let's rewind a little bit. You said someone that he knew and could understand. Can you explain a little bit about why he didn't understand?
Yeah, of course. In my capacity of working with Bade as a caseworker through the International Institute where I used to work in St. Louis, I spoke Arabic with Bade, but this was not his mother tongue. His mother tongue was a tribal language that no one else in this city except for his kids speaks. It's called Gam, from the Ngesana tribe. And so we could get by speaking Arabic, Bade and I, but in a life or death situation and with an interpreter from a different country like what the police brought, and with mental health, circumstances for him complicating things, I think there's a strong reason to believe he couldn't understand properly what they were demanding him to do.
Now, what language did the interpreter that the city brought?
They brought an Arabic-speaking interpreter from a different country. In Arabic, there's dialects that differ greatly from one country to another.
Yeah. So there sounds like there was a language barrier problem here.
Language barrier, just one piece of it. He's from very rural area, not familiar with technology. The fact that they're broadcasting something to him, I think there's good reason to believe that he wouldn't have realized this broadcast was for him. There's a lot of unanswered questions, but what I know is he was not an aggressive man ever. He was a easygoing, gentle person. And all the dozens, maybe hundreds of hours I spent with Bade and his kids, he never acted violent towards anyone.
Can you tell me a little bit about what kind of father he was?
He struggled as a single father. In the refugee camp he had been in, other people helped him out raising his kids, and he worked outside the camp. So it was very difficult coming to this country where he's supposed to raise his kids by himself to a large extent. And that was not easy for him, but I know he loved his children. I would chat with him on his porch, and he would be caressing his daughter's head. When his younger son would wake up from a nightmare, I remember he would come to Bade for consolation and comfort. And I know that these 4 children's mother died in childbirth before they all came to the U.S. So now they have not a single blood relative in this country because of the escalation on the part of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police, and I think that's just an injustice.
Now, you said the police came into the apartment. Did they throw smoke bombs or what exactly?
They've made vague allusions to the fact that the claim is on the part of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police spokesman that they exhausted all non-lethal means, but you can listen to bystander recorded footage of this raid on Facebook, and it undermines the account that they're giving. It sounds to me like once they raided the apartment, they were prepared to use deadly force. Between the time when they saw him with a knife and they fired, they had at least 13 seconds, according to the bystander footage that you can listen to at tinyurl.com/justiceforbade. You can hear from the first 13 seconds of that clip, they have 13 seconds of saying, drop the knife. They're saying it in Arabic. And, it strains credulity that in those 13 seconds, there was nothing a 5-person SWAT team could have done to disarm this man. He's not an imposing big man. I mean, this man's about my height and maybe 120, 130 pounds. Like, I just don't believe that he had to die whatsoever.
Now, by the way you describe it, what reason do you even think he had a knife?
I think the onus is on the St. Louis Metropolitan Police to come forward with the footage they took. They want to get brownie points for the fact that they had footage and they're making claims about how they used all non-lethal methods. Then prove it, because the community is left guessing, left asking bystanders who, one of the most painful things about this, I've talked to Sudanese people who showed up to try to save this man's life. They knew Bade is not mentally well. They knew that he's not a threat to someone, but there's a SWAT team ready to go in there guns blazing. And so people from the community, at least 4 Sudanese community members plus neighbors in the Hodiamat complex, they showed up to try to negotiate with the police department to try to save a life, and they were prepared to go into this apartment. So what does that tell you about how dangerous this man was?
Right.
It just doesn't add up. Right. And the onus is on the police department here to come forward with more details of prove that this man could adequately understand what you were telling him to do, first of all. Prove that you truly exhausted all non-lethal means, because the pressure from the public will continue to grow, and people are afraid. I mean, people I worked with who are black and brown came to this country seeking freedom and safety. Their governments, like Bade's government, was a dictatorship persecuting people because of the color of their skin, and he came here hoping for a safe future for him and his kids. Now he's dead and his kids are orphans. That just breaks my heart.
Absolutely. And you said it just right. The goodwill between the police department and the community is gone. It has been exhausted. And the onus is on them to prove that he was a threat. And I'm going under the assumption that he was innocent till proven guilty. And the way that it's presented is that he was guilty until proven innocent.
There's other details about this that don't add up to me. For example, they are talking about him having felony warrants, including assault. But if you look on CaseNet, he has a few warrants for assault. They're not felonies. They're like class 4 misdemeanor charges. So how do they reconcile what they're saying? They're trying to imply that this man did someone serious injury and that there was a felony assault. That doesn't match what's on CaseNet.
So they're lying.
Exactly. I mean, then there's the fact that they talk about Bade lunging with a knife. So from the time they see him with a knife to the time they shoot, 13 seconds passes. Just count out 13 seconds and tell me what kind of lunge takes 13 seconds. That is more than enough time to use all kinds of non-lethal methods.
So true.
They're talking about, they say they used tasing, then they went into the apartment. How do you tase someone through a wall? If you haven't gone into the apartment yet, how do you tase someone?
It doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And they're expecting that people will not be there to stick up for this man because he didn't speak English, because he was maybe kind of isolated, new to this country. He didn't have friends in high places, and I hope that we'll prove them wrong.